Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming to our talk. We are Rive, and for those of you who might be a little confused by the name, we recently announced that we consolidated our old company name, 2Dimensions, with our old product name, Flare. So our product and our company are both now called Rive. We're going to talk to you about how to use Rive with Flutter to create interactive and animated experiences. And who are we? So I'm Guido. This is Luigi. In case, say hi, Luigi. In case you can't tell, we are twins. And we've been working together for pretty much 20 years now. We started working in high school together. And Luigi's always done the engineering side of things, and I've done the design side of things. And we're just complementary like that. And that is why we think we're the right people today to talk to you about how to create interactive animations for Flutter. So what about Rive? So Rive is our tool. It's a design tool that allows you to design and animate. And it allows you to create real assets that that are ready to be implemented immediately into any of our supported platforms, which, of course, we're talking about Flutter here today. And Rive is composed of two parts. So the first part is the editor, and it's online, it's collaborative, it allows you to design and animate and create all your work in this single tool. You can also import from other tools, so we have the ability to import SVGs. We recently announced that you can now import Lottie files. We worked with the creator of the Body Movin' platform, Hernan Torrisi. He helped us build the importer, so now you can import After Effects files directly into Rive if you have legacy formats or a bunch of other files that you don't want to start directly in Rive. You might need to import some other stuff. And the other part to our platform is the runtimes. Now, the runtimes are what allow you to load your file into any of our supported platforms and manipulate anything in real time. These are open source, and we encourage everybody to contribute to them. So we're going to switch over to the computer real quick, and we're going to show you one of the demos that we built earlier this year, which had a lot of interest, and Luigi's going to walk you through it.
So this is Teddy. Teddy is a character which our animator, JC, who's actually out in the crowd, actually he's right here in front if you have questions
in the front
for him
here.
Later, created this really cute, cuddly, fuzzy bear who, as you can see, is kind of sitting there animating, hiding behind the login form. But what you'll note is that his eyes are moving, his body's bobbing up and down. He has an idle animation playing. But what's interesting about Rive is that we have the ability to manipulate these animations at runtime. So we can mix other animations on top of them, and we can also move parts of the hierarchy dynamically. So if I click on this email field here, you'll see that his eyes moved over. And if I start typing my email address, you'll see that he actually follows along, even if I type something all the way over here.
And this is a Flutter app, by the way, so that's a Flutter input field that Luigi's manipulating.
Yep. And then if I go over to the password field, you'll see that he covers his eyes. He's not going to watch. If I type the wrong password in, I don't know, let's do rats. He's going to be very upset. And then if I change it to the right one, which is, of course, bears, he'll be very happy. And so what you can see is that what's happening here is that we're manipulating a lot of the hierarchy via code. One of the things that we heard a lot from people after we gave this out was, how did you do that? So there's a blog post that we actually published that shows exactly how this all comes together and works. We also exported these widgets. We published these widgets as reusable components, so you can add your own characters into your own apps. And we'll actually show you a little bit more of that in a bit.
Yeah. By the way, we should mention that this idea we were inspired by other people who've done this login form before. There's an HTML variation of this that uses a Yeti. There's another bear app that uses I think it's a password app that has a bear as a login. The reason we wanted to show you this particularly because ours is a little different because it actually allows you to blend these animation states from one to another. So you'll notice that when Teddy starts looking or when he animates to cover his eyes, it's actually blending between different animations. It's not just popping to that animation, and that's something that's special about Rive.
Yeah, he smoothly moves his gaze over. He smoothly pops to covering his eyes. He also will actually track the cursor while he's still blinking.
Yeah. So Luigi described that we got a lot of interest. We wrote a blog post about how to do this with Flutter, and that's all fine and good. But what if you're a designer and you want to learn how to use Rive to create something like this yourself? So we heard from a lot of designers that when they open it up, even developers, they want to try Rive, they'll open it up, and they'll get this kind of fear of empty canvas, which there's just like this empty canvas with all these tools, and they're like, I just don't know how to start. I need help. So we actually asked our artist if he could film himself while he was creating the bear. And the full video is 2.5 hours, maybe 3. So we're not going to play that full thing for you now, obviously. But we do have a quick speed through. You can get a sense for it. And let's go ahead and play it now. And you can see that when it starts here, you can see that he starts with a basic, well, this is the finished animation, but he starts with a concept, like with those sketches over to the sides, and then he actually created everything in Rive. He built the shapes using the pen tool and some other basic shapes that we have. He created all the colors, he did gradients and all that, and then he's rigging it with bones. And this is, when you're not watching it at super speed and you're watching it at normal speed, it's a really helpful tool to understand a lot of the techniques and the real fine technical details, like how do you use the pen tool, or how do you convert a hard edge into a curved edge? How do you use bones and connect things to bones? Those are all fine and good, and it's helpful. But a video like this doesn't really teach you what we think is the harder part of doing this kind of design work, and that's the concept. So how do you actually know where to start? And that's some of the stuff that we want to tackle in our talk today. And to make things a little more interesting, we're actually going to introduce a new character, which is Gus. So meet Gus. And we're going to switch over to the computer, and Luigi will show you how Gus is all rigged up in Rive.
So this is Gus. He's a very lovable goose. And you'll notice that he has a completely different hierarchy. We didn't show you all of Teddy, but we have the link in that blog post, and all of these are open, so you can go check them out. But he has a completely different hierarchy from Teddy. He's got a different body, a different neck, different components. But you'll notice that one of the things that is common between those two animations is that they both have this look node. So as long as your character is rigged up so that you can kind of move his gaze with this one look node, everything will work from the code perspective. So what we do here is, you can see, we'll move this around, and he's rigged really effectively so that he kind of follows this around. Even if I go down, he looks at it in a different way. If I go to the left or right, or if I point it up, he kind of does as best he can to kind of follow what that thing is trying to do. And you'll notice that his neck is also bending. There's one feature we have that's called jelly bones that this is using.
You can start to notice why Rive is special, right? This is all running at 60 frames per second. It's all interactive. It's all in real time. Nothing is pre-rendering here. This is the actual asset that's going to run in your code. And it allows you to do stuff like this, like check that everything is properly rigged up. And actually, if you switch over to animate mode, we can also take a look at the animations here. And the key thing here is that our animations are named the same as Teddy. So when we swap out this asset later, it'll all work because the animations have the same name. One animation that's interesting that you should probably show, Luigi, is the idle animation.
Sure.
If you want to go to that, you can see that Gus kind of moves up and down, like he's kind of breathing, but he's also kind of moving a little. He's swaying his hips left and right, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but that adds a lot of personality and a lot of character that we wanted to think about when we were doing this concept. So the last thing we'll show you on this part is that if you pause that animation real quick, Luigi, and then you play there's one called look test or something like that. So in this animation, we're basically just animating that target node that Luigi showed you, and we're just simulating what it might look like in Flutter or in any of our runtimes, what it's going to look like when someone's moving that look node. And the thing that's interesting to show here is that while we're playing this animation, we can start blending on top of it the idle animation or any of those animations. And you'll notice that we can see that our idle animation is still working properly. None of our keyframes are conflicting or creating some kind of problem. And that, again, is pretty special and something that you can't do in other software or other animation programs that are not made for interactive, real-time content like this. So let's switch over back to the slides. And let's talk a little bit about the concepts that we want to cover here. So when we design characters or assets like this, we start with a sketch or a mood board. We try to think about, get inspiration from like a Google Images search. And then we start kind of sketching out the style that we want. Do we want it to be a little more abstract, like to the right there, or a little more realistic, like to the left? And we play around with colors. And once we get some of the concepts down, like we wanted in that upper right there, we really knew that the neck was something we wanted to focus on, because that's going to be how he's going to kind of move his gaze. So really start thinking about what is the stuff you're going to be working on before you start actually building anything. And then in the next phase, we actually switch over to Rive, and we design all of these parts in Rive. And you can see to the left that the final effect is really convincing, and Gus is super cute. And it just works really well. But if you look over to the other side, you'll notice that these are all really basic, really flat shapes. There's nothing really crazy special going on here. If you were to try to recreate any of those on your own using the pen tool, you go and watch how JC used the pen tool in that video that we showed you earlier, you can pretty easily recreate any of these individual shapes on your own. Then we start thinking about the rig. And we don't have enough time here to cover everything about rigging, but I promise it's not as complex as it looks. The important thing to think about is that you need to think before you start rigging what you're actually going to be doing in your app. So for example, if we knew that we wanted to have Gus run across the bottom of the app and pick up the button with his mouth and run off with it, we would be building a completely different rig from this. Instead, we know that we want Gus to be looking at the input field, at the password. He's going to have to cover his eyes. So we know that we're going to have to do a little bit of work on those arms and a lot of work on the neck and on the face. And speaking of the face, the beak is the part that we think really sells this 3D effect. That's really what makes all these flat images come together and look like it's almost a 3D model. And you'll be surprised how actually simple the concept is here that sells that effect. There's only two images. There's the front of the beak and the back of the beak. And on the left side there, you can see that white highlight around the front beak. And when the two are layered in front of each other, it doesn't look anything special. It's not until you see it in motion that you start seeing how 3D it looks. And what's going on is that target node we have, there's two translation constraints connected to the images, and the front image is moving just a little bit more than the back image is moving when that translation constraint is moving. So that's a really simple parallax concept, which allows the front image to move more than the back image. But then on top of it, we've got that pivot point at the very top of his beak up there, and that's where the front beak is rotating from. So as that translation constraint moves, not only is that front image moving a little bit faster or a little bit more, it's also rotating from that top pivot point. And that's all it takes to create that really convincing 3D effect. So ultimately, we go into animation. And before we actually start laying down keyframes, we really encourage you to think about what you want your animation to do. So we call this, when we're sketching animations, we call it blocking out poses. So these are the key poses, and there are block poses. And if you start just laying down keyframes, you're going to end up getting something potentially random, which could be cool if you're trying to create something abstract. But in this case, we know that we're creating a character, and we know that, for example, with the idle animation, we want him to move up on the first pose. The second pose, he's going to move down. The next pose, he's going to move back up, and then back down, and loop the whole thing. But we also know that we wanted to create that kind of waddle, goose-like personality. And so we know that we're going to make his hips rotate a little bit when he comes back down in one direction, and then rotate in the other direction before that loop ends. And these are all simple concepts that you think about when you're actually sketching and concepting and blocking out these poses. We did the same thing here for covering of the eyes and uncovering of the eyes. We've got little details like we want him to actually close his eyes when those hands come up and his wings, thank you, come up and cover his eyes. And then we want them to open up when he removes his wings, but we want it to be a little delayed so that it's got some personality, and you can kind of see that he had his eyes closed when the wings were up. So I'm just going to move through these, but you can see what the other poses that we blocked out here looked like for when he gets mad, when he's happy. And why don't we switch over to the computer and actually show you what this looks like when we put it all together in Flutter.
Yeah, so the first thing to do is simply just, after exporting it, just swap the file. So we have this already exported. I just rename the asset from the Teddy one to the Gus one. I'm going to save it. I'm going to do a hot restart since the asset just got dropped in there.
So if that wasn't clear, Luigi already has this exported, and it's already in his assets folder.
I did, that's true.
Yeah.
And there, we're done. Perfect. Gus is in there. He looks great.
Yeah, OK. Gus is in there, but I mean, you can't even see his face. I think we can do better than this. I guess I could go in Rive and resize him and everything, but there's got to be a better way to do this in Flutter.
So one of the nice things that we expose are just all these classic Flutter alignment and fit constraints. So what we're going to do is let's just change this to contain, and that way we'll get Gus in all his glory with the face in there. Ta-da!
Yeah, OK, it's better, but you still can't really see him super. I mean, Gus has a big personality. Let's get him a little bigger.
All right. Let me think.
Like, can we maybe align him?
Let's go back to cover and let's align him top center. How about that?
Oh wow, that's actually really good. Can you hide the keyboard?
Sure. There you go.
All right. Yeah. OK. He looks pretty good. Just try typing something.
All right. He's not really looking that much, huh? So the reason why that is that because these are different character files and because the distances and the dimensions at which JC animated this or designed this can vary, we may need to project Gus's gaze a little further. So why don't we do that? Why don't we expose the parameter for this? Again, this is one of those components that we open source, so we kind of made it a little bit abstracted, so it's a little easy to kind of use these different parameters to make things a little more tweakable.
You can also use it with your own characters easily. You can just drag and drop this in and swap these properties.
So there we go. Now he's really going.
All right. That looks great. Yeah, it works on both sides. And you can see that simple 3D effect, how it's really shining here.
And let's see if his wings work. It looks like they do. Oh, he's kind of peeking.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's a little bit of a cheater, but OK, that's fine. Let's see if he's still.
Yeah, actually, our close eyes animation isn't working right. We got to fix that.
Oh, yeah, he gets really mad. But he also likes bears, so. Yay, he's happy.
All right. Well, I think that's it, right? We're not going to do anything else, are we?
With Gus? No, I mean, well, you know what? There has been this whole cyber madness, cyber vehicles or something that people have been really clamoring over. And I kind of think that, marketing kind of requested that I make this ask, is that maybe we try to ride that wave a bit.
Okay, so first of all, we don't have a marketing department, but I think I understand what Luigi is asking here.
You want to take over? You want to
Yeah, we recently announced some new features. Actually, we just announced them today. And
the blog post might have gone out 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, the blog post, if the schedule is working, might have just gone out. And they're actually our most requested features on our public roadmap. And they are drop shadows, inner shadows, glows, blurs, and real image masking. And we're going to show you a little bit of how those work here. So fortunately, our artist already gave us a concept image here as inspiration, which I'm going to just turn on. And there we go. So that's CyberGus. We're done. No, actually, thank you. But actually, he just gave us a flat image, so we can't rig this up. And I don't think we have time.
We did half the job.
Yeah. We don't have time to do all that here anyway, but we are going to show you some of those effects and how they work here on stage in real time. So here we go. I'm going to select Gus's eye here, and I'm actually going to select a, Luigi's scroll is backwards on his MacBook. There we go. I'm going to select a node that contains all of the eyes, and I'm going to go over to our new effects over here in the inspector. I'm going to hit the plus button, and I'm going to add a drop shadow. And the shadow's kind of big now, which is why it's not showing up, so let's make it smaller, maybe like a 3. And let's make it red so that it looks more like a glow. OK, let's add an inner shadow and also make it red. Ooh, he's total Terminator now. Maybe bring it down to like 4. OK, all right, this doesn't look as good as JC's, our artist, his image looked, but close enough. One thing I want to point out, though, is that we have this on this top-level node, which is actually called a solo node, the type of node that we used here. And all that is that it's got a radio button here, and it allows us to quickly change from different types of eyes or different types of anything. In this case, we're using it for an eye, but you could use it to swap out like a whole different part of your hierarchy. So in this case, I'm going to just switch it to the angry eye, and that didn't work for some reason. Oh, I see. I actually applied the effect to the wrong node. I only applied it there. All right. Well, if I would have applied it to the top here.
Come on, some real-time designing. Fix
all right,
it.
all right. Let's just try a blur to try something a little different. That's too strong. All right, so that's blurred out. And now if we enable the eye, you'll see that that eye is blurred too. So it's actually applying the effect to anything below it in the hierarchy here. So speaking of blurs and other effects, one of the really cool effects that we recently added is this real masking. So you may have seen clipping before, and that's something that's pretty easy to do with vector assets. So I'm going to hit the O shortcut. That's actually just up here to create an ellipse. And I'm going to draw a circle. And if I just make this, let's hide the stroke on it. And let's give it a gradient, a radial gradient. So if I make this a mask for Gus, so I'm going to select the topmost node here that holds Gus, and I'm going to add a mask. I'm going to select this circle that we just made. And we have pretty much like your typical clipping path now. This is what we had before. So if I move this image around, or this shape around, it's clipping Gus. But if I change the mask type, I got to go back to the group that has the mask on it. And if I select this here and I change the mask operation from alpha to luminance, now it's actually fading out Gus in relation to the image's luminance. So going from white, where it's visible, and black, where it's invisible. And if I hide this shape here, you'll notice that the effect is more visible. And the cool thing about this is that you can animate it and create some really complex effects with it. Not only that, but we can also, if we select the top-level node here, start adding more effects on top of it. So I could add a drop shadow here, and we can offset it a little to the side. I can also add an inner shadow on top of that, and maybe let's make this white to create kind of a lighting effect.
Why don't you just blur the whole thing?
Yeah, and let's add a blur just to make this completely crazy. All right.
But now I think you should show the animation.
And the cool thing about all this, is if I switch over to animate mode, and let's find an animation that actually does something, you'll notice that it's still animating and applying all these effects in real time. And not only that, but if I select this and open up the properties, I can key all of those effects, and all the properties are animatable. So you end up being able to create something pretty compelling. And not what I just created.
Yeah, why don't we show something a little prettier, actually, that JC did.
Yep, our artists have fortunately created something not live on stage where they were able to make something with a little higher quality. So we've got this bubble effect, which is actually part of our logo animation that's on our website. If you go to rive.app, you'll see the Rive logo animating. And you can see that he's got some masks and inner shadows, outer drop shadows, and that's creating this glow effect. We've also got this basketball, which is pretty cool, where he's using the blur effect to create a motion blur. So you can change the amount of the blur in either X or Y axes. So if you just blur one axis, you can actually get a really convincing-looking motion blur. And because you can apply it to any node, you can have the ball spinning and rotating and doing all kinds of things, but the blur is actually still facing in the right direction of movement. So if I zoom out here a little bit,
You can show the shadow, too. The shadow does the same thing.
and if I play it, you'll see that it's creating a really compelling and pretty realistic motion blur effect there. If I hide the bones, you can probably see it a little better, too. And we've got one more example that he made here, which is this spaceman. And you can see that he's got an inner shadow on the whole node here containing the spaceman, and that's creating this lighting effect on him. And let me hide the bones so you can see it better. And we've got a bunch of effects here. There's this planet has a blur on it. It's got like some craters and stuff. I don't know if you can super tell from here. But there's just a lot of effects layered on there. These are all public files on Rive, and you can open them up, play around with them, and see how this was created, and figure out how to use these effects on your own. And like we mentioned earlier, they're some of our most requested features, so we're really excited to release these today, and we can't wait to see what you're going to create with them.
And they're fully supported in Flutter today, too.
Yes, they are available in Flutter, the Flutter runtime, and usable in your
Just
project.
update to package 1.81, and you're good.
All right, that's
Thank
it.
you.
That's our talk. Thank you.